It starts with a message that pulls at your heart. A photo, a story, a call to help. You feel it instantly, that small ache of compassion that makes you pause mid-scroll. A child in crisis, a tragedy far away, a stranger asking for kindness. You click, you share, you give, and for a fleeting moment, you feel lighter, better, human again. But somewhere underneath that wave of warmth is a quiet unease, a sense that something sacred is being used for something else, because this moment of kindness doesn't feel as pure as it once did. How did something as noble as empathy become one of the world's most powerful tools for manipulation? Empathy was never designed for marketing campaigns or political speeches. It's older than civilization, a biological reflex wired into the human nervous system. Mirror neurons in the brain fire when we see another person suffer, lighting up the same areas as if the pain were our own. It's what allowed small tribes to survive. Shared emotion meant shared safety. When one person flinched at a threat, others reacted instantly. Feeling together meant living together. But evolution doesn't favor morality, it favors advantage. And once a reflex exists, someone will eventually learn how to trigger it. That is where the story of weaponized empathy begins. Empathy bypasses logic. It slides beneath the rational mind and lands straight in the gut. It whispers act now before reason can say wait. Manipulators, marketers, and ideologues all understand this, maybe not in words, but in instinct. They know that emotion sells faster than truth. That guilt is more persuasive than facts. That the human heart, once open, rarely closes in time. Psychologists call this the affect heuristic, our tendency to judge truth by feeling. If something feels emotional, it feels real. That's why a heartbreaking story spreads faster than a factual correction. Why scammers thrive on tales of illness or tragedy. Why political movements invoke pity and anger before they ever discuss policy. The heart reacts first. The brain rationalizes later. A scammer doesn't need to prove their story. They only need to make you feel cruel for doubting it. So you give, not to help them, but to silence the guilt of not helping. That's the quiet genius of manipulation. It convinces you that compliance is compassion. In personal relationships, it's the same dynamic. If you loved me, you'd do this. After everything I've done for you, how could you say no? Empathy becomes a currency. Guilt, the exchange rate. Abusers rarely scream, they sigh. They make you feel heartless for having boundaries. And because your self-worth is tied to being good, you give until you disappear. The world has industrialized this pattern. Entire economies run on the same principle. Provoke emotion, harvest attention, profit from guilt. On social media, empathy is data. Every tearful post, every angry retweet, every donation click becomes measurable behavior. Platforms learn what moves you, what breaks you, what keeps you scrolling. In 2014, Facebook researchers manipulated the emotional tone of news feeds to test emotional contagion. Users exposed to more negativity began posting more negativity themselves. The conclusion was disturbing. Emotion can be engineered. The algorithms don't hate or love, they optimize. They've discovered that outrage and sorrow keep you online longer than peace or balance. So they feed you more of both. The more you feel, the more predictable you become. And empathy, our proudest human trait, becomes the perfect control mechanism. But there's a limit to how much emotion a mind can hold. Psychologists call it compassion fatigue. The more suffering we witness without closure, the less capable we are of caring. At first, empathy moves us. Then it drains us. Eventually, it numbs us. We scroll past another tragedy, another crisis, another plea, and we feel nothing. Not because we've grown cruel, but because our hearts are exhausted. That's how empathy dies in the modern world. Not from apathy, but from overuse. We live in an empathy economy where feeling is currency, outrage is virtue, sadness is engagement, and silence feels like sin. Sociologists call it performative empathy, compassion turned into performance. Brands post moral slogans while exploiting labor. Politicians weep on camera while legislating suffering. Influencers sell sincerity in perfectly edited clips. Even ordinary people perform goodness online because empathy has become social proof. And yet, most of them mean well. Most of us do. We just don't realize our care has been commodified. The system doesn't want resolution, it wants reaction. Resolution ends engagement. Outrage renews it. Every act of online empathy becomes part of the same loop. You feel, you share, you scroll, you feel again. Each emotion feeds the algorithm, which in turn feeds you more emotion. It's empathy as addiction, the illusion of connection without the substance of change. The philosopher Nietzsche saw this danger long before social media existed. He warned that pity, when idolized, becomes a form of control, a way to keep people weak through guilt. The Stoics offered another solution. Compassion, yes, but guide it by reason. Feel deeply, they said, but act wisely. Because uncontrolled empathy is like floodwater, it erodes even the ground it tries to nourish. Modern psychology agrees. Too much empathy without boundaries leads to anxiety, burnout, even depression. When you absorb everyone's pain, you lose sight of your own center. That's when manipulators strike. Because empathy without awareness is obedience. This is why cult leaders, narcissists, and populists all sound so understanding. They mirror your pain, your fears, your dreams. They build trust through emotional mimicry, the appearance of empathy without its substance. When you feel seen, you stop questioning. And when you stop questioning, you become loyal. It's not stupidity that makes people vulnerable. It's longing. We all want to believe that someone understands us. And in that longing, empathy becomes the bait that leads to captivity. But the tragedy of weaponized empathy isn't just deception, it's depletion. Because the more our emotions are exploited, the less energy we have for real compassion. The heart that once gave freely begins to close, not from malice, but from exhaustion. So, what can we do? Do we harden ourselves? Become indifferent? No. The answer isn't to feel less, it's to feel smarter. Psychologists call it cognitive empathy, understanding emotion without drowning in it. It's the balance between the Stoic's detachment and the altruist's compassion. It's empathy as a conscious act, not a reflex. Cognitive empathy pauses before reacting. It asks, why am I feeling this? Who benefits if I feel this way? Is this compassion or conditioning? It's a simple discipline, but a revolutionary one, because when you start asking these questions, the machinery of manipulation loses power. You begin to see how guilt is used as bait, how pity is recycled as propaganda, how kindness is packaged and sold. You start to choose when to care, and that choice is what makes your care real again. Setting boundaries doesn't make you cold, it makes your compassion sustainable. You can't heal the world by burning yourself alive in its name. And maybe that's the new form of strength, not emotional hardness, but emotional clarity. To care deeply, yet calmly. To give without being guilted. To help without being drained. Because a burnt-out heart can't heal anyone. Imagine a world where empathy wasn't a spectacle but a skill practiced with patience, rooted in truth. Where we didn't measure goodness by how loudly someone cries, but by how quietly they show up when it matters. Where feeling wasn't currency, but commitment. True empathy doesn't broadcast, it acts. It doesn't chase attention, it seeks understanding. It doesn't demand constant outrage, it builds quiet change. And perhaps that's what it means to reclaim empathy in a manipulative age, to make it intentional again, because empathy isn't weakness. It's one of the most dangerous forces on Earth, dangerous because of its power to move people. It can build civilizations or burn them down. It can heal a nation or justify cruelty. Its value depends entirely on the awareness of the one who wields it. So guard your empathy like a sacred flame. Shield it from those who would use it for control. Let it warm, not consume. Illuminate, not blind. The world still needs empathy desperately, but empathy now needs guardianship. It needs people strong enough to feel without collapsing, kind enough to care without losing themselves, wise enough to recognize when compassion has become camouflage for control. Because the future will belong not to those who shout the loudest, but to those who feel with clarity. The next time an image, a headline, a story pulls at your heart, pause. Feel, but don't surrender to feeling. Ask, is this empathy asking for action or manipulation asking for obedience? You'll feel the difference. One expands your humanity, the other drains it. We are at a turning point in human evolution, not of technology, but of emotion. For the first time, our empathy is global, quantified, programmable. That means our only defense is consciousness awareness of how easily our goodness can be turned against us. If we fail to protect empathy, others will weaponize it. But if we learn to master it, to feel wisely, think clearly, and act deliberately, we might just reclaim what makes us human. Because in the end, empathy is both the light and the shadow of our species. It is what connects us and what can be used to control us. The question is no longer whether we should feel less, it's whether we can learn to feel better. Because the world needs empathy, but empathy needs wisdom. Without it, even good hearts can become someone else's weapon,